A couple months back, I did a video about 10 reasons the United States is better than Europe. Americans loved it, Europeans not so much. The comment section had the word bias show up quite often. I mean, we get that word all the time. This one was just a little ridiculous and over the top. I had to respond with, "Don't be a crybaby, Fritz," or "Johann," more times than I'd like to admit. Biased is like the internet's new poorly thought out generic term. If you see something you don't like, you just leave a comment about it being biased. I still don't get that one. Everyone on the planet is biased, including the person that leaves that comment. Unless I just read stats and say nothing else, it is going to have some level of bias. It would be the same thing if anyone else made a video, did a podcast, wrote a blog, diary, captain's log, whatever. Today we have 10 biased reasons why you should never move to the United States. This is sort of directed at developed countries that aren't in like a civil war or living under a dictator. If you're living in a bombed out warehouse in Syria right now, you're probably going to be fine with all the entries on this list. Number 10 is stress level, and I'm sure if you're in that situation, you're going to be yelling at whatever you're watching this on with, "You don't know what stress is." Make sure you stay towards the end, and I will list some things that didn't make the list, but foreign types often complain about. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, stress level. The United States is considered to be one of the most stressed out countries on the planet. That's during normal times. I mean, times of war, like I said about the Syria thing, it can be a little bit different, but the United States, when it comes to your education, like in the universities, when it comes to your bills, when it comes to your work life, we've got a lot of stress. Stress is a natural reaction of the body to problems. Nobody on the planet is stress-free. The stress faced by immigrants is several times greater than the usual worker or student in the United States. If you're doing the paperwork and you're here legally and all that stuff, that's stressful enough. But if you're not doing the paperwork and you got to worry about being deported all the time, that's adding even more stress onto an already stressful life. You have difficulties finding jobs, adapting, renting a home, all that good stuff just adds to an immigrant's stress. Outside of Japan and a few other countries, the average American worker faces an overwhelming amount of stress. That's part of the reason so many people are quitting and they're doing side things like Uber Eats and things like that instead of working for corporate America. Quiet quitting is a thing we're hearing more and more about, and that's when people just kind of do the bare minimum of their job. They're not trying to get ahead, they're just trying to get by. And one of the main reasons that's going on is stress. Number 9, Americans don't use the train. Yeah, that's not our thing. We have trains. They're somewhat getting more popular these days, but compared to Europe and parts of Asia, we just don't use our trains. We're a big country, and most of the things we purchase, they use the train, but the people don't. I'm a big fan of the train. I've been across the country several times on Amtrak. I go up to Seattle from Portland on the train whenever I'm going to Seattle. I think in probably the 20 times I have been up to Seattle from Portland since I lived here in the last 12 years, I've taken the train all but twice. And I'm an oddity. There aren't many people like me in the United States. And Europe, that's how most of them are. It's like polar opposites. Granted, our trains in most cases aren't as good as the trains in Europe, but still, they should be used a lot more. More and more places are adding trains to their local commute, like here in Portland, but we're far behind most of Europe. And if you're moving here from Europe, you're going to kind of be shocked by it. And if anyone tells you just take the Greyhound bus or something, don't do it. Greyhound sucks. Number 8, sales tax. Sales tax is added at the end of your purchase. It's almost like a surprise. It's like they're deceiving you. In most countries, the sales tax is added to the advertised price. So if you go in someplace and it says $2.99, the sales tax is already figured into that price. If you're in the United States, let's say California, which has the highest sales tax, if you go in someplace, throw down $5 to buy something that says it's $5, they're going to want another, 35 cents from you. That's not the exact math, because it changes all the time and I don't feel like looking it up, but you get what I'm saying. Now, if you're not from the United States, you might not know this, but there are some states that don't have sales tax. Where I am right now, Oregon is one of them. Delaware, Alaska, Montana, New Hampshire are the other states. So that's 5 out of 50 states that don't have sales tax. Number 7, beware of our healthcare. Just about any foreigner I've ever talked to knows that the United States healthcare is a nightmare. We're one of the richest countries and one of the most developed, and I'm sure most people would consider us the richest and the most developed country on the planet. There's an argument there that we won't get into, but our healthcare system is far below any other countries that are considered wealthy, a democracy, and developed. When you look at outcome and quality of healthcare, the United States is ranked 18th among developed democracies and all that good stuff. It's like countries that are not doing great, like Ethiopia or something like that, are not involved in this. This is democracies that are developed and should be doing better. We're ranked 18th. When you look at cost, it's ridiculous. In 2019, before the pandemic, money spent on public health is $8,047 per capita. That takes up about 14% of the US budget. Number 2 on that list is Luxembourg, which is a lot smaller than the United States in. They spend about $5,500 per capita, and it takes up about 5% of their GDP. Again, in 2019, it is estimated that the average American getting private healthcare or whatever spends about $12,000 a year. The average life expectancy of a United States citizen is 78.7 years. We are the only developed country that doesn't have a life expectancy over 80 years. Most of them are 82 to 84 years. Now, there is so much more that could go into this one. It gets very political, and that's not the point of this. I'm just telling you, if you're moving here from Europe or something like that and you don't already know, our healthcare system is not what you're probably expecting. Number 6, extreme patriotism. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a patriot to your country. Doesn't matter what country you're from, the United States, whatever. But when it goes too far, that's a problem. And here in the United States, we kind of have a problem with that sometimes. And it's kind of playing into the hands of politicians, and there's a lot of frustration. And a lot of our extreme patriots start off with phrases like, if you don't like it here, leave. If you don't love it, leave. Stuff like that. Now, in my opinion, if you're a true patriot and you don't like it, you try and fix it. Love it or leave it. That mentality is kind of like a defeatist thing, and that's not being a patriot. That phrase only comes up when it's things they don't agree with. But most of those people, if something came up where they were trying to regulate their guns or vegan restaurants or freedom of speech, trust me, they'd stay around and fight. But if it's something they believe in and you don't believe in it and you have a problem with it, they tell you to leave the country. Now again, nothing wrong with being a patriot, nothing wrong with loving your country, but sometimes, like anything, things go too far. And it kind of bleeds into number 5 on this list. Number 5, the political climate. Yes, patriotism does play into this, but the political climate in this country right now is bad. I don't care which side of the fence you're on. It's just bad both ways. American citizens are at each other's throats more than any other time in the United States history, except maybe the Civil War. Civil rights was pretty bad too, but right now there's a definite divide between parties in this country. The inability for us to get along with each other and try and work on problems is kind of dragging the country down and putting us in a bad situation for our future and for our present. What's funny about it is most of the politicians are okay with it. They need it. They use it. They use us against each other so they could do things and they can get elected and they could try and push things through Congress. Again, this is something that has a lot more to it, and I just broad brush the hell out of it. If I was doing a 3-hour video, I could do it just on this subject. Every country has something like this, and there's civil wars all the time in other countries. It's just something that the United States hasn't really seen in decades and decades and decades. At least this bad. Number 4, the crime rate. Like most major cities on the planet, we've got some crime, but we have some cities here in the United States where the crime rate is ridiculously bad. Detroit, Southside Chicago, St. Louis, East St. Louis, Kansas City's pretty bad right now. Memphis, Tennessee, my suggestion is stay away from there. Now, some places you may think are bad just from their reputation and how big they are aren't as bad as some of our, let's say, not as famous cities. New York City is not that bad when it comes to crime rate. It's got a history of that, and there are some areas that you should stay away from. But in general, the police kind of have a handle on it for being such a big city. Los Angeles, too, we got some areas there that you need to stay away from. But yeah, the crime rate in the United States is bad. Number 3. The imperial system. The United States is the land of pounds, feet, and inches. Not many countries go that direction. The USA is in a small club of countries that don't use the metric system, with Myanmar and Liberia. If you're not from here, it is counterintuitive, it's confusing, it's downright horrible if you're used to the metric system. Now, this is something we got from the British years ago that the British got over. We just didn't. Now, if you're in the United States, I promise you, it doesn't seem like a big deal because you're used to it and you probably have a grasp of the metric system because we teach the metric system. Other countries don't teach the imperial system. Number 2, The homeless. If you don't know already, the homeless situation in the United States in a lot of our major cities is at epidemic level. Go to Los Angeles, San Francisco, Oregon, Seattle, even in Texas. I was in San Antonio not too long ago last year, and it was pretty bad there. Dallas has a good amount. New York City has a ton. Miami, San Diego, Denver, Colorado is sort of fixing theirs. I mean, they're the ones that are making the most progress, but it was bad for a while. Don't get me wrong. Other countries have homeless. Other countries have ghettos and poverty and all that other stuff. We just have a bizarre amount of people living in tents on sidewalks. Here in Portland, Oregon, we finally got to the point where, people were going to be at the mayor's office with torches and pitchforks if he didn't do something soon. And in recent months, they've been cleaning up the sidewalk campsites in Portland, Oregon, and moving them to these designed areas a little outside of the city. Is that a solution to the problem? Maybe, maybe not, but it's kind of making it look better. All right, before we get to number one, a couple different things. One, we have another channel called On This Day. There's a link down below. We'd love it if you went over there and watched some videos, subscribed. And some of the things that should have been on this list, but they're not. Racism, it's a big problem here in the United States. Most countries have their problems with racism. It's a little bit much here in the United States lately. I've seen that a lot of other people from other countries say that our tax system is confusing and overly complicated. There are some countries that they just do their taxes for you. They take out what they owe, or they tell you what you owe, and you don't have to go through the process. It's a pain in the butt here in the United States. I've also seen a lot of people talk about tipping. They don't get why we tip here all the time for everything, for waitresses and waiters, whatever. To me, it's normal, it's natural. I was raised by a breakfast waitress who eventually went on to own restaurants and a catering business. But the early days, it was kind of rough. And she relied on those tips. We did. I think in other countries, I could be wrong, but I think in a lot of other countries, waiters and waitresses, they get paid a lot more. In the United States, you get minimum wage and you rely on your tips in most cases. All right, on to number one. And number one, gun violence. Yeah, it's all over the news. You probably already know that we have a serious gun problem here in the United States. Now, I'm a gun owner myself. I'm not saying we need to get rid of all guns or anything like that, but there needs to be a solution, and we've never been able to come up with one that an entire country would agree on. I mean, we can't even get to 55% agree on something like this. We don't have a week that goes by where there's something didn't hit the news about some defective person using a gun in some horrific way. It is one of the biggest struggles we have here in the United States. What do you do about this situation? And I'm sure the comment section is going to be filled with a bunch of people going, I know what you do, and they're going to leave their opinion. Just remember, not everyone shares that opinion. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. And if the video gets enough likes, comments, and views, I got another one that's similar to this that you might enjoy. All right, everyone, have a great day. Be nice to each other.